I'd like to call to order the Saugatuck Parks and Public Works Committee meeting of October 25th, 2022. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Chair,
Here.
Dean,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said chair. I thought you said chair.
Chair.
Sorry, no. Chair. Chair's excused. We can start again.
Dion,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Kimball,
Here.
and Rich.
We have, do I have approval of the agenda? This will be a voice vote. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Okay, we have a motion from Johnson, second by Young. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. The agenda is approved.
Any opposed?
No. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, I need the help. I appreciate it. No, I do.
He's a newbie
I need, basically, you should just have like an electric cattle prod and just keep hitting me with it.
Just like buzzing.
Yes, yes. A buzzer, put a buzzer on the chair, yeah. So, okay. So we also have approval of the minutes from the September 27th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Good,
Second.
good. Motion from Kibble, second by Roche. Any discussion on the minutes, any changes or additions to the minutes, corrections? Anybody notice any errors? No? With that then, it's a voice vote to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Approved unanimously. We now are at the part of our meeting where we will entertain public comment on agenda items only. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and agenda items only. I don't see anyone in the room that wishes to address the committee. Is there anyone online that wishes to address the committee? See none. That concludes public comment, or at least our first public comment. And that takes us to item 6, review and discussion. Item A, staff presentation on park improvement priorities. Over to you, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a PowerPoint presentation to walk us through a discussion today. And we will pull that up. All right, here we go. So for the agenda today, we want to talk about some of the projects that are active with the city of Saugatuck, stuff that we're working on. Today we have a deep team here in the audience. I think most of you know all of them, but let's just do a round of introductions. Scott Herbert first.
Hi, I'm Scott Herbert, Public Works Superintendent. Yeah, as far as priorities, are we getting into the?
No, with just introductions, and I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
you just sit there. Ryan Cummins, just so you know, Glenna, I think you're the only one that maybe does not know the team. So Ryan is doing planning and zoning as the project coordinator as well. And then we have Cody. Cody is the new assistant DPW supervisor. So he's supporting Scott with some of the more administrative work. And then we have John Moxie, our engineer. So he's part of our squad as well. And then.
John, what's your last name?
Yeah, he works with Fleece and Vanderbrink, so he's got a long relationship with the city of Saugatuck. And we have Lisa Mize, who's with the CVB, so. Great. And so we're gonna talk about active projects, stuff that we have going on already. And then we're gonna get into some projects that staff is recommending that the Parks and Public Works Committee start addressing. After that, we'll talk about who's interested in those new projects that are coming in front of us. And then we'll kind of wrap that up into some grant opportunities with some of those projects. So that's, I think the main takeaway from the meeting today, Mr. Chair, would be to start understanding who of your committee members are interested in what projects.
That's exactly right. We've had a few examples already. A couple of us had a chance to go on a visit on Park Street, for example, and once again, it just led itself to a great opportunity for the committee. We've had other discussions on other properties. And I won't get to the punchline, but yeah, let's just carry on.
So I think that's, yeah, one of the end results of today's meeting would be like, who's interested in what?
Yeah, and maybe even a little brainstorming. I mean, not to blow the
Sure.
meeting up, but a little bit of brainstorming on other resources that we might want to bring in to these work groups, because just from the experience with the radar station, we found that, there are a lot of specialists that may not even be city residents. They may be with the county. They may be our partners over in Douglas. They may be associated with the History Center. They may be part of the school district or the community rec department. So I'm hoping that we can have an open conversation about, trying to populate these with some of the best teams possible to tackle some of these projects we've got.
Cool. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, so we'll talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these projects in a little bit more detail, but the overview is that we are actively working on the Blue Star Trail multimodal path. We have a small project with an Oval Beach swing set. It's amazing how many details go into a small swing set. Then we'll talk about the Water Street Sidewalk project, which I think starts today. Construction starts today on that. Invasive species, surveys and treatment, and then facilitating the malt bald head exterior repairs. And we'll talk about the volunteers that are working on that.
And just real quick, Ryan, are you okay with the members sort of just jumping in?
Anytime.
Anytime?
Yes, please.
More free flowing. Okay.
Yep.
Do we
Anytime you
raise
have a
our
question,
How do you want
address,
us-
yeah, the appropriate way to do that is actually to address the chair.
Okay.
It's not, it doesn't have to be super formal, like Mr. Chair, but if we start talking over each other, which happens sometimes, I wouldn't expect that today. But as we get into future discussions on some of the bigger projects, the appropriate way to do that is to address the chair. Yeah, just kind of flag your hand and he will acknowledge you. And I mean, it's a super formal way to do it, but it's appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Okay. Whatever works. Yeah.
Yeah, but don't be afraid of the formality of these meetings. We just try to be consistent through all of our council down through our commissions. And so that is the best way to do that, to address the chair with the question and then just jump in anytime. Not on this agenda, but worth mentioning is that last night, John Moxie was presenting a road asset management plan to our council. So they go throughout the city and they address the conditions of the pavement. And then they make recommendations to council based on the conditions. It's just worth mentioning because I'm sure that will tie into some other projects eventually. But for the most part, the Parks and Public Works Committee is focused on new projects, not kind of, which is different than ongoing operations and maintenance. Meaning that our road assets already exist. It's heavily engineered. It's kind of a sciencey thing. And then our city council will address any particular concerns. So we do the science and then we make recommendations on road asset. And then the council will say well, then the small town politics get involved and then council makes those decisions. So I'm just trying to keep it high level with this Parks and Public Works Committee as far as projects moving forward.
Okay, one thought, and I'll happy to explore this with you. I'm just thinking of real world examples. Ruth and I had a really good visit with the folks that live on Park Street. And obviously the road is the big project, fixing the road, hopefully making it more safer and more accessible for everyone. But it did touch on sort of our Parks and Public Works, for example, a big first step we thought would to make it a little bit safer for people to cross from the chain ferry to the Woolham Trail. So that does sort of have a connection
Correct.
to that. So, and obviously for me, I think Ruth would be a great resource to interface with that community that has very specific concerns about how people use the parks and how they, also use the infrastructure to get to the
And
parks.
the movement of traffic, the movement of people, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just one example where I think there might be some overlap, but obviously I agree with what you're saying in terms of the overall deep infrastructure stuff, the water lines and all that stuff is.
Yeah, it's sciencey stuff, but like I said, yeah, it does tie into some of the other projects, and when it gets to city council, I know there are some concerns in that area, so that's a perfect example.
Okay, okay.
Um, okay, let's see where we're at. Next slide, please. All right, so some of the active projects, and I'm trying to keep this high level. And so Blue Star Trail status, if you're not familiar with it, it's a partnership between City Village of Douglas, City of Saugatuck, Township of Saugatuck. This project goes way back. They've been trying to get a connection from Saugatuck Township to Douglas for, I think, over a decade now. And so there's been some great progress. What we're really talking about is, and then I should also mention that we do have a member on the Friends of the Blue Star Trail on your committee, which was announced at our previous meeting, but we're talking about 1.15 miles of new trail. The engineers that are helping with the project, the preliminary design is complete. It meets all the state and federal standards. We have 2 grants submitted. Of those 2 grants, the Transportation Alternative Program, which is a federally funded grant, we do have a verbal commitment that we're going to get a good chunk of change. On the next slide, I think I have some of the dollar amounts, but we don't, well, that's okay. I cued you in, yeah, but we'll get back to it. And then we have another one, which is the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund grant, which we just recently received our scoring on that. Our engineers feel pretty confident that we're doing very well with that grant as well. And then if you have not gone to the Friends of the Blue Star Trail website, I would encourage you to do so. They have wonderful maps of exactly where these trails are at, what's going on, their long-term vision. And so I'll just pause there before we get to the next slide.
Do you work with this? Do you work with that Riverview Council? Are they together at all in this?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I mean, the meetings that I've attended, with the Friends of the Blue Star, there's awareness, that
Okay.
that group is out there.
Just kind of like us. Yeah.
Right, but, there hasn't
Got
been
it.
any.
Okay.
And I'm on that one.
I like that one. yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, now
That's a good
now there's
one, I think,
connection.
yeah.
We concentrate on foot trails.
Got it.
Yeah, if you just want to jump over to the next slide, thank you. Just some high level numbers. Working left to right, the total project cost is $2.2 million on this project. 15% of which is engineering cost. City of Saugatuck's portion of that is 1.13 million. The township would be kicking in 1.07, 1.08. And then working down from there, as I mentioned, we're pursuing some grants, which we feel pretty confident about at this point. So 1.3 would be coming in from the federal grant, which is the Transportation Alternatives Grant. Going down from there is the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund. The township and both the city applied for 300 apiece, so that total 600,000. And then we have a local share of 265, so it totals 2.2 million. And then dropping down from there, we have our local share breakdown. The city of Saugatuck kicked in $50,000, or willing to kick in $50,000. Township is holding steady at $10,000. And the most really important is the Friends of the Blue Star Trail. They're in for a couple $100,000, which is amazing when you have a friends group that can raise that type of money. So the local share breakdown is 265,000. And again, so it's kind of wait and see right now with our grants. But again, we're feeling pretty confident. And happy to address any questions of this, on the number
I think Glenna,
breakdown.
you have a question?
Yeah, this is dependent really on 4 different parts. Saugatuck and the township getting the TAP grants and the other grant. What happens if one of those doesn't come through?
Then you're gonna have to look back at your municipalities and, wonder if they are willing to step up with their own general funds or willing to issue a bond, or there's many different options. So if a grant falls through, which would be unfortunate, yeah, you have to go and see what your local municipalities are willing to do to keep this project moving forward.
Given the amount of infrastructure money that's floating around the state right now, I'm pretty optimistic, but obviously anything can happen. I don't know if you're gonna get to this, Ryan, but maybe just 30 seconds on how you think maybe a subgroup of this committee would be useful in interfacing with the project.
Next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
So I think what's going to be most important, as far as the committee level work on this project, will be some of the design aspects of the bridge aesthetics. So, we have our basic engineering of like the dimensions of the bike trail width and the road. That was a long discussion that we've gone through, but there's going to be some aesthetics on like the bridge itself. So that's one example. As far as like pillars, like if you drive through Douglas, I guess as a better example, and you can see like some of the barriers that they've put in and some of the markers that they've placed, that would be some of the discussion that this group would have. A lot of the boardwalks that are going to be required in our bridges across some of the wetlands. I mean, that's just like some basic engineering, but there's also some nice amenities that this committee can certainly discuss as far as places to like get off the trail and have a seat, like benches and that sort of thing, or educational signage. So those are the aesthetics, and some of the finer details is what the committee would be working on and then make a recommendation to city council ultimately. And that's an important thing, because I know a lot of people are concerned about that, especially the bridge.
Yeah. I mean, the Douglas example was controversial and it's been tweaked, I think, a number of times. So obviously we want to find a way to avoid having to do a lot of tweaking, just get it right the first time.
You're redoing it, yeah.
Right.
I should also mention, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So as far as the grants and everything that's been done so far, I know the lead has been with the city council. So that will continue on, and then you just foresee this group doing, this portion of it, or will that also be rolled in eventually?
Yeah, I would just see this committee working on design aspects. Yeah, mostly focused on aesthetics. Another example of that would be like the pallet sign. So that's kind of a question right now. How does the trail interface with the pallet sign? Can the trail go underneath the pallet sign? Does the pallet sign need to be moved? If you move it, there will be trouble. So, those are some of the things that, that I foresee this committee working on.
Yeah.
With the help of our engineers, of course. You don't have to do this in isolation. Yeah.
But I think once again, being able to combine the engineering solution and the safety solution with sort of the overall vision and aesthetics that I think this group has and already does have a good handle on. So I think would be useful in that regard.
Correct. Okay, so that's Blue Star Trail. Any other questions on that? All right, next slide, please. All right, Oval Beach swing set. Mr. Herbert, you want to join this discussion? So we had a generous donor that Scott's been working, and our whole team has been working with. And so we're pretty excited about that. So just kind of the process that goes into this, and how close are we to getting this installed?
Yeah, so the way I understand our donation policy is that if someone wishes to make a donation to the city, let's say benches were a big one for many, many years. And so there'd be some sort of a memorial bench. Well, that they would make the donation, that money would go into a fund. And then when the city is ready to purchase more benches, then whoever's on that list gets the priority over the wordage or the language on that bench as long as the city has the ultimate approval on it. So we kind of expanded on that a little bit because we have a lot of benches. Not to say that we couldn't use more, we certainly could. Some of them could maybe be updated or be composite, but we thought, if we have this very generous community that's willing to make financial contributions to the city, why not take it a step further from benches and try to actually kind of facilitate the donation with something that the city needs now. And in this case, we went with a swing set out at the Oval Beach. The one that's out there right now is in pretty rough shape. It's very dated and doesn't look very good. So we had a Zoom meeting, Ryan and I did, along with Kate White when she was working here. And the donators were fully on board with the swing set purchase. So they donated a generous amount of money. And in which case, right now, we're in the process of getting it ordered and kind of some of the fine details of not having, the memorial aspect of it be huge. And how do you incorporate that into an item like this? And so right now, we have it worked out where it's actually going to be a 6-seat swing set. So there's going to be a third set. So you'll have this like the belt style swings over here. The expression, I'm trying to get my terminology, playground terminology correct, but these are expression swings. So we have a section of those, and then we have some zero gravity swings, which kind of have like they're more inclusive, and they have kind of a harness that goes over this child or whoever's in the swing. So that's on order right now, and then I think the goal is some of the donators want to have like a subtle memorial aspect to it. So what we decided is maybe we order some decals that would just go in between each of the sections. So there's 3 different people that are being honored with this donation. So they'll have one decal for each of the 3 sections on that swing. The city, they got approval from the city on what the language would state exactly. And so that's where we're at with it. That should be ordered this week and installed. It really just depends on when the weather is going to allow us to install it, because it'll involve the Public Works. Basically, it'll get shipped in a package and on a crate, and then Public Works will do the actual install. And so we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, do the install probably in the spring, so it doesn't get sandblasted all winter long. And then some fine tuning with working with Streamline Design on the decals for the memorial donation aspect of it. So it's pretty cool. We're excited to have it. It's really generous of the donators. They're really easy and pleasant to work with.
I don't think it's a bad idea to kind of think in that direction. Like if we have a project and we see something that calls for a certain amount of money. I'm sure you all have worked on a lot of communities that people like to have their names on things, but not always a bench. So I think this is a really great way to take it and the money for it to like find a project to put that money towards. So.
Yeah. And my vision is to really just try to, prove to the community members that if you're going to make a generous donation to the city, that they're really getting a professional quality end product that really does their loved ones justice too. So this is a good example, and we're trying to set the bar high so that maybe people will even help donate to like the kids playground or another swing set that needs to be constructed down at Village Square. So hopefully it takes us in good directions.
So I love this, and like what Ruth was saying is I love this idea of our group potentially moving forward with this and finding, doing some marketing pieces so that we can get more endowers that would be interested in this and having a priorities list. So I went to Oval last night because of this meeting, and I just sort of wanted to see, I hadn't been out there in a bit. And I'm wondering, with the space that's there, have we thought about with this going in and also putting in like a true playground area in that space? I mean, I don't know space wise if that's possible. It sort of looked like it was. And you look at all the other, beaches up and down, like Michigan, everybody does have that now, and they've put in newer playgrounds. So I'm just curious if, this is already done, if we can put it in a way where we can add to it. And if this group is doing those types of, endowment things, then.
Yeah, it's a good long-term kind of thought, and there is a decent amount of area up there. It could use a little bit more. Nothing, the way it's designed right now, we couldn't have a massive playground by any means. But I do see having a little bit more space for other things there, certainly. But we did just have the History Center too. I think Scott,
Yeah, I was just-
Chairman Dean and I met with the Historical Society out there, and they're going to install, I think this spring also, one of the kind of the 3-panel signs that they've installed around town. Oval Beach was selected as one of their new locations for that. So we're going to see that in that same general vicinity too.
Okay.
But certainly, yeah, it's worthy of exploration for sure.
That's what I was gonna bring up. There's sort of two pieces that we also probably want to think about, and Scott pointed this out to me when we were out at the beach with the History Center guys, is Scott mentioned the metal sort of history sign, which is consistent with the other ones we have along the riverfront. And we wanted to make sure that was, you know, as far away as possible, so somebody's not gonna launch themselves off the swing and into one of those metal sharp edges of that thing. And then the other thing Scott pointed out to me, at least, when we were on that tour, was there is some dune grass to the north side of the swing set that I think you're hesitant to
Move.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not very popular people when we start excavating out dune grass. So
But no, I think if there's other, if it can safely be fit,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
but it's also important too to get, get somebody who's, like CPSI certified, like a playground company. For example, one of the ideas before we landed on the idea of the vinyl or decals on the swing set, we talked about having some sort of like a little bracket fabricated with like a metal sign up above it. And that's a no-go because that doesn't meet safety standards. You're not allowed to have anything up above like 84 inches or something of that nature above the swings. So having a professional service come in that specialize in that area, come in and work with us closely would be very important.
But yeah, I think if we can do more, obviously, I think it'd be great. It's a really nice spot. I mean, that's why we kind of like that little corner by where the garbage can is currently, because it's sort of where people line up to use the concession. And it gives them a chance to kind of, learn a little bit about the history of the place while they're waiting in line. And I'm sure a lot of parents, one of them's in line getting snacks for the kids and somebody else is entertaining them. So it's a good, I think it's a decent spot for it. I mean, to build on that if we can.
Yeah.
And really, there's not too many places at Oval Beach that lends itself to playground equipment like that, just because of our beach is awesome, but it has that slope. And, like Holland State Park, they have volleyball nets and it's
Yeah.
great. They have a lot of real estate to work with. We don't have that. We have our own uniqueness out there. But
Right.
that spot would be one of the very few,
Yeah. So is this going in the exact same spot where the swings are now?
pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can definitely do the installation in a way that kind of future planning, leave some space to where if we could add, something, a little extra something there, we'll keep space for that.
Yeah. And have you already picked out the colors and everything?
Yes,
Okay.
it's been a long.
Okay. So you don't
This
wanna
is
give a
actually, I can send an email about, it's and Douglas has a swing set really similar to this, the same frame color and everything, but we chose a sky blue frame, and then the expression swings and the zero gravity swing frame. Those are going to be beige because it just kind of lends itself well to the Oval Beach atmosphere out there.
It's pretty.
There's an internal staff, I'll call it a discussion.
Yeah.
So we all actually got a vote. I was outvoted, but that's okay.
But beige, that
I
was,
got beige.
and there will be beige on the swing set.
So no, it was a big discussion. So we had a palette of, I don't know, 60 colors or something. And then, so, yeah, we wanted to blend in with the lake and then also, but not too matchy. And then that's when we got into the whole discussion. So
I think Douglas, they have the sky blue frame and they have like their zero gravity swing. The chair is like orange, so kind of school colors, which was great. We just kind of felt that beige and blue was a good fit for the lake shore.
Nancy, did
I
you?
just had a question about, will that just be on the sand? Or will there be any kind of a surface?
Just sand.
Just sand, because it gets really hot.
Yeah.
Having had my grandchildren there,
Right.
and I just wondered if there was any consideration to doing
Yeah.
anything.
It'll be
But
next
anything you
to,
put there would just get covered with sand probably, so.
essentially, yeah.
Nature has a way.
But it is kind of skewed over towards a wooden walkway that
Yeah.
has some maintenance issues. There's I think a big cottonwood tree The roots are buckling that structure. So that needs to be looked at some point fairly soon, I would say. But the swing set is in pretty close proximity to that for relief.
So, Mr. Chair, we have a whole separate playground discussion
Okay.
later on the agenda
Okay,
where we can really have this committee take a deep dive.
okay.
Not today, but maybe a
Okay.
subcommittee of people who love the playgrounds. But I do want to mention donations again. When this group reached out to us, they wanted a memorial bench, which is very natural, very like, it's a reflective
Yes.
space and we totally get it. I remember taking a picture of my daughter Vivian on a bench by Peterson Preserve. She looks so cute, but like right above her, like in big bold letters is like in memorial of like, whomever that was. And my parents were like, who is this person that is like memorialized here? And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know. They're like, oh, kind of ruined the picture. But I was like, oh yeah, but it was a good gesture that they put in this bench. So we are going to push donors towards projects that you align with and the city council aligns with. This is a perfect example of that. Also, I want to mention, because Lisa's here, that the CVB is also willing to participate in costs. And maybe, Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate, you can call on Lisa and see kind of where the CVB is at and what they're willing to help out with and as far as donations to the city.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Do you? Sure, yeah, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, this is a good time.
Just one other thought for Scott, while I've got his attention. You don't have to get, but yeah. I think, a great project, I think, and great input from everyone. I think just based on our past experience with donations that change anything in this town, it's really useful to have kind of a quick elevator speech on why it needs to change. I'm thinking about a project where we had a very generous donation that was pulled back because people didn't like the change. So if there are any safety maintenance deficiencies in the current swing set, I think as we move forward, it'd be great to have those identified. So when people do say why, my kids always swung on the giant one and they were able to get, 20 feet of air before they landed in the sand or on the concrete. At least we can say, well, that would, your kids used to have jarts too. So, so anything you can identify in terms of the deficiencies, maintenance, safety, otherwise, I think it might smooth the conversation because people are very nostalgic about a lot of things and for very good reasons, but I think it's
Absolutely,
just nice
for
to
sure. There's a lot to that we could talk about as far as like the maintenance deficiencies at the kids' playground, which we'll save for later on.
That's coming up.
Yeah,
We'll
but
put
you're
a pin in this
spot
one
on.
then.
There-
Okay,
There's good reasons for the upgrades that need to happen out there.
Yeah.
So, and most of them revolve around public safety.
wonderful, wonderful.
I wasn't prepared.
The CVB has done a strategic planning about, I think it's almost 2 years now. And part of the strategic plan was the development of tourism-related assets for the communities, Saugatuck, Douglas, and Fenville and the township. So the board is in a unique position, I think this year and probably hopefully for the next couple of years that they've never been in before, where there's a sizable amount of money that can be granted to a municipality or a group that is looking to do something along these lines. So we're happy to have those funds available and happy to help. We're probably going to come up with a grant application, which is on my to-do list. And we can go from there.
Great. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Lisa. Moving on, please, next slide. Something that we're also actively engaged in is invasive species surveys and treatment. Pretty thrilled that Allegan County is participating in doing a survey for the HWA bug, which is the hemlock woolly.
Adalgid.
Thank you so much.
Adalgid.
Is that spelled, that's not spelled correctly?
No.
pretty close.
It's close enough for, For a non-scientist.
So, and then also there's a meeting that's being set up to address, through the Allegan County Conservation, to address knotweed in the area. And when I first arrived here a couple years ago, Allegan County Conservation District was kind of nowhere to be found. We were working with Ottawa County. However, what I'm noticing is that Allegan County is being well resourced at the moment, not only with their conservation district, but also with their telecommunications and then also with their emergency services. So I can tell that there's some change going on there, which is wonderful. So it seems like they have a nice team set up. They've already reached out to me to get some mapping for addressing the HWA bug, which I know a lot of people in the community wanted to address. I asked them to be very patient. They have been mostly patient. But finally, we're at a point where now we can rely on our county resources as a partner to get this addressed, which is awesome. Knotweed as well. Scott Herbert and I have talked about knotweed for the last couple of years and addressing that. It's one of the most invasive plants as far as their its aggressive nature, and then kind of lifting infrastructure, getting into pavement, and just pretty wild invasive plant. We've also talked about other species like the purple loosestrife and Phragmites. And so those two are on the list. And so I think this group can help us with slowly working into a strategic plan to address those issues. So, but it's good to have our county partners really stepping up. So I won't spend too much time on that, but
I think Nancy does.
I just had a question. Will that address just the public areas of the city? What, I mean, if the bugs are on private property, they're just gonna come right back. I mean, is there any thought about that?
Yeah, so the strategic planning on that would be to educate private landowners and provide resources to them to also address the HWA at the same time. That's already happening. So we already partnered with private landowners in the Oval Beach area, but that needs to continue. Just education, provide them resources. It gets really tricky wherein you can't spend public dollars on private land. So the best thing that we can do is just educate people and let them know what the grand scheme is.
Would a good example though of the public-private piece be when we went after the Eurasian milfoil in the lake? And didn't we have a few condo owners or dock owners that threw in some money into the contract so the vendor could do a larger swath? Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, however, that was still on public waters.
Fair enough.
So,
Okay.
I mean, it's a tricky balance. I mean, so I've worked on a similar scheme in Door County, Wisconsin, wherein, again, we provide resources, educational resources, and or allow them to contact for economies of scale with the vendors that are doing our treatment and say, here are the people that are doing the treatment. We'd highly recommend that you join in. So,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Next slide. Mount Baldhead. Oof. The Mount Baldhead area. So this slide, so first, a big thanks to the Mount Baldhead, Friends of the Mount Baldhead work group, who have done amazing work on the building itself at the top of the hill, and the surrounding area, securing the fence and then taking care of some of the graffiti on the building. So they've been doing some amazing work. Scott, Mr. Chair, I don't know if you want to jump in at this point.
Well, I guess, yeah, it was an amazing team, and really, a lot of that team's work has been the inspiration for what I think could be an effective way for some of these work groups that spin out or are off of this hub of the Public Works Committee. And first, I've seen that conceptual master plan. I'm assuming this was done quite a long time ago.
2006.
So, okay, so yeah. And it looks like it was done by a University of Michigan, by a Michigan State student with an unlimited budget.
We need to get them back.
Because I don't, just to be really 100% clear, I don't think there's any intention now to to tear down the radar building next to the tower. And now we have AT&T coming in. So there's obviously a lot of changes here. This was obviously very much a
Correct.
blue sky exercise.
Yeah,
by-
they do,
by-
because I went to Michigan State, they do projects. I went up north
Okay.
on Old Mission Peninsula. So you've got unlimited resources, unlimited ideas, and then they put it down to about this and take one or two ideas.
So I think I'm glad you
Yeah,
said
That's
that,
what,
Ruth,
that's
because,
what we do, yeah.
yeah, so that's what this is, Ruth. It's not
No,
it's no, by any means a fait accompli or even close, but.
No.
No, the purpose of this slide, for the record, and anyone watching.
I like that. I'm glad you put that in there because I've never seen the Michigan State project.
No,
so-
I thought it was
Yeah,
fun when I
that's
saw
kind
it
of
too, and it was
interesting, and
well done.
I
This.
Shocked at first, I'm like, what?
I know.
It's very thought provoking.
Yeah, it is thought provoking. It pulls out some ideas, yeah.
But the purpose of this slide is to illustrate that the people have been thinking about redoing the Mount Bald Head area for quite some time. 2006, next slide.
6.
This is, I think this plan was developed in 2016. So a decade later, new ideas, new vision. I think this is F&B's product. And, you know, maybe by the next decade, 2026, we can, 2006, 2016, 2026,
I
we'll
don't think
get
that's
there.
really funny to the public.
Anyways, yeah, so there's been a lot of ideas for a long time. So there are some catalysts for moving these projects forward. Not only do we have AT&T,
Yeah.
who are very much vested in running infrastructure up to the Mount Bald Head radar tower. That's going to come with some basic infrastructure in as far as the housing that they need for their equipment. And so as of yesterday, sorry, Scott, we haven't had a chance to talk about this, but this was yesterday and we had meeting after meeting after meeting, but they had, I was rapping with these guys from AT&T, the engineers, and they were like, instead of putting infrastructure on the top of top of the hill to house what we need to run the cellular service, how about putting it on the bottom? And I said, well, yeah, maybe. What are we talking about? You know, we talked about the square footage of what they would need. Said, you know what, that's not a horrible idea because we need new restrooms there anyway. So maybe we can just house all this stuff in one well-designed building. And they were like, yes, we can do this thing. So we do have some things that are pushing us forward, not only the Park Street redo, but also just, you know, the bathrooms are they're rustic. Potting soil for the record. So yeah, I mean, there's an immediate need, and we have the pavilion there that is also very decrepit. So I think this is one of the things that we need some help with the committee and our breakout group to help design. But we do have some initial plans. One thing the government's really good at is like no offense, John, is developing plans and then shelving them and forgetting about them and then redoing plans again. But I think there are some things that we can pull off of some of the old plans, kind of cherry picking some of the good ideas that you see. So I'll just pause there.
Well, and I was, if I could add to it, I was thrilled when you told me about this last night at the end of the council meeting. You know, this is a great example of, you know, when this committee kind of puts together like these plans and sort of the vision. So when we do have somebody that comes in and says, you know, I'm willing to pay to put in some infrastructure for my customers, in this case, AT&T, to be able to identify what, you know, this is a historic site. We want to take care of it. It's on the national, it's going to be on the National Register. So, you know, yeah, you can put stuff inside it as long as we can preserve it. And then when they come back and say, well, it's easier for us to maintain, like, you know, whatever it is, you know, the utility closet size, you know, little doghouse where all the computers or whatever go, to have that conversation, to say, well, save your guys 302 steps, you know, every time they have to go service something. And by the way, we need a bathroom. You want to build something, maybe we can make it look attractive and be dual purpose. So once again, creating infrastructure that serves multiple purposes, you know, it could be really huge for that location. That's a sore spot with a lot of folks that use that park, is the state of the bathrooms there. So once again, I think, go ahead, Scott. Yeah, please yeah, please.
Yeah, so, I think the big issue for like the telecommunication companies is access to the site. So when equipment malfunctions, there's a storm, whatever happens, are the logistics of it. So another area that may be worthy of consideration is the Reservoir Road. It's got basically an asphalt milling road it's very travelable. That might be an area too to kind of protect our, the parking space and whatnot at Mount Baldhead Park. But also you gain quite a bit more elevation
That's a
too.
good idea,
So
yeah.
it's not a site that I see the public accessing on a regular, frequent basis by any means. There's not much to look at over there. So, but I think that might be, a way to suit both needs. And then also too, just really quick with Mount Bald, I know we're going to get to staff priorities. And so this may fall under that, but just a little background, the Mount Baldhead steps, I think those were reconstructed somewhere around 2009, somewhere around there. 2010, and there's some serious maintenance issues with the steps. And Public Works, every year we get, probably ever since I've been superintendent for sure, which has been 2017, we get a handful of complaints by people in the summer that the stairs are, there's some maintenance issues with them. And so we've spent a significant amount of time like digging sand out from underneath the steps, replacing stringers, doing that work ourselves to try to keep them safe for the public. And it really is getting to a point where it's getting beyond basic repairs that the Public Works can make. So I would just, my professional opinion is I would urge you to consider this project sooner rather than later in terms of priorities and spending monies and moving forward. So
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And that's, once again, I think that's consistent with feedback we've gotten in the past 2 years of community surveys. I mean, I think it's been identified as a top priority, the steps and the deck at the top as well. So go ahead,
Before
Kelly.
we resume, so what's the most difficult part as far as the upkeep for you guys?
the logistics and the amount of time. So this always happens during the summer when we have a million other maintenance issues going on with the city. For me to dedicate 1 or 2 other full-time employees that are fully capable of doing repair work, sometimes it can take several days, and that's a significant percentage of my crew. And so it's always during those peak moments, right before 4th of July or right before some huge special event, Venetian, whatnot. That's when these things start to happen. So it's and it's not just like throwing a screw in, to tighten up a decking board. It's like the stringers and the posts going into the ground. We could do a tour sometime, but the whole structure, the railings getting pulled apart, I could go on. So it's just the sheer amount of time that it takes.
Yeah, I don't know if we have time today, but I mean, I'd love to hear from you in a perfect world, what you would like to see as far as long-term maintenance and things as we're trying to make decisions.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think, well, in a perfect world, composite decking, maintenance-free composite decking and powder-coated framing. And so, but yeah, no, it'd probably have to be some sort of blend between, realistic costs and what we could get for the money. But I do know it's like, I don't know, it's like modern lumber just doesn't last the way that it used to. I think they were, it's possible that wood may have been treated with different harsher chemicals in the past than it is today, and it just doesn't last. So, I think everyone's really disappointed with the short lifespan that structure had seen before it started needing really extensive repairs.
Yeah.
But as you walk up the steps, there's a whole, and really, I'm not 100% sure if we need to be kind of inspected and certified at some point. I would think for the integrity of the structure that may be getting a little bit overlooked right now. So, thank you.
Go ahead, Lisa. Yeah, we're freestyling, yeah.
Always,
Oh, yeah.
anywhere.
Same
Yeah.
as a sidewalk, yeah.
Anywhere. Yeah, that exists everywhere and anywhere. Yeah, it's a long story. So
I think if the committee doesn't have anything else on this, I'll turn it back to you, yeah.
yeah, I will mention that Michigan State also with their 2006 plans introduced, I have some drawings for new stair system and new decking. So again, we can pull those plans back out. But it is a priority for us. It's a concern.
Yeah.
All right, next slide, please. This is probably, let's see, yeah, the last of the active projects that we have going is the Water Street sidewalk. So this is a sidewalk that connects Willow Park to, Scott, help me. Star of Saugatuck. So it's been a historical disconnect. So again, that project is active today. So I can't wait to go check that out.
That'd be nice.
And then I'm gonna float this out there and I won't tell you who I heard it from, Scott Herbert. Is eventually possibly connecting the sidewalk from Willow Park all the way down to Holland Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go. for that.
Yeah.
That would be a
so-
big safety improvement.
It would, yeah. People are walking down the street. So
That would-
there's quite a bit of, I will say, from city manager brain, there's quite a bit of space that there could be a sidewalk installed. I'm sure the property owners would not be 100% thrilled, but, and so it goes.
Well, keep people safer.
Well, exactly. Safety first. All right, so that's the end of the presentations on our current active projects. And now we have some new projects that we'd like the committee to get involved in. These are kind of the priorities that we see. And so Park Street, right? We touched on that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Village Square Playground and Park. Blue Star Trail. We already talked about that, so we won't spend too much time in the airport property. Next slide, please. All right, Park Street project, as discussed earlier, the city's been looking at that for quite some time. Long history of wanting to make that multimodal friendly, so bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles. Hoverboards eventually, I'm sure. City conducted a survey of the roadway that was completed 3 years ago, I think. Mr. Moxie said, right before I started, so that's like 2.5 years. And I think the results of that survey are quite complicated in that the city's right of way, meaning that where the city thought they owned property actually traverses over private property. And I mean, it's a very historic, very old road. And so there's a lot of logistics to work through in as far as what the city can actually do and or acquiring property easements, temporary easements. I mean, it's just pretty complex, and I can let John speak to that briefly if you want, Mr. Chair. And then also just my last point on this is that I think Park Street requires a very, very, very thoughtful discussion on widening the roadway, the roadway with also traffic calming measures, because what we have experienced on Campbell Road, just as an example, and just throughout my urban planning and my history of roadway projects, is you widen the roadway and you smooth out the road,
Oh,
vehicles are going to travel much faster.
mhm.
So if speed is an issue now, redoing the roadway, widening the roadway, not only dealing with the complications with the private landowners, but just doing that alone will cause vehicles to it's just human nature, will cause vehicles to drive much more quickly. So it requires very, 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 very thoughtful discussion.
And on that is it is a gateway to a ton of things. And we need to be safe, but we need to also retain the integrity of that character of that site. And it could be just as simple as just grading the side and having walk space, but we'll talk about that at another time. I'm just saying there's simple solutions that don't require huge money.
Thanks, Ruth. And did you want John to?
Did you want to talk about the survey, just like how wild it is?
Actually, just for a little bit of context, when the city decided to look into North Park Street, north of Mount Bald Head, what we found was there was no official public easement right of way, nothing up there. Back in the day, things just kind of got built because there were cottages up there that needed water service. They needed sewer service. Somebody had to build a road to get to them. So the city acquired an easement, a very narrow easement going up North Park Street. So the issues on the rest of Park Street, not that bad, but it's an old right of way, and the road was kind of built path of least resistance. So sometimes it's way over here, sometimes it's way over here. So yeah, just trying to balance all of that, especially when you get up near Perryman there, Holiday Hill, it doesn't match at all. So yeah, there's issues that'll need to get worked through. Obviously, we'll want to, as we do a project, we want to make it right so that going forward, we've got, what we need. So yeah, definitely some challenges there.
Thanks, John. I think on this one, based on, Ruth, correct me if I'm misstating it, but, based on what the feedback I got from Park Street residents a couple of weeks ago, it seems like, we all agree that, the gold standard would be separating people from vehicles. That would be the gold standard, but I'm not sure we can get there anytime soon. So I got a sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, a lot of the residents there would be okay with, the 80% solution, which would be just where it can be sensibly widened.
Right.
But striped in such a way. And I think they use some tricks on Campbell Road to try to keep it calmer in terms of traffic speeds. And maybe it's even the way the road, maybe continues to meander in a certain way. So we could end up with like little bottlenecks, but then little like almost kind of
Yeah.
safety zones for a pedestrian or a bicyclist just to wait for a car or vice versa.
I think the biggest thing on that road is like, is just to slow the traffic down. Cause I live on 399 Park Street, the big awful hill. And it's just to slow those people down because we work with the people that go 15, 20 miles an hour and it's not scary, but that 25 miles an hour, that's scary when you're walking a dog, when you're pushing a stroller. But there's, like you just said, you would just have to go out there and physically walk it.
Yeah, and I think just something to put in Scott's
Yeah.
mind is, if there's a way to do traffic calming that also is seasonal, so it doesn't interfere with your ability to do winter activities such as plowing. Obviously we can't have speed bumps and plow effectively.
No,
So thoughts on
but we don't
traffic.
have the traffic in the winter like that.
Precisely,
Yeah.
precisely.
Yeah.
So anyways, some thoughts on that.
Okay, that's gonna be a complicated one. I can't wait
That's gonna
for
be
you
long.
all to work on that. And I will just mention this because my good friend, Mr. Gordon Neal Lafort, we walked up and down that road. I don't know if you remember Gordon. And, I said, one of the best things you got going for you right now, Gordon, is all these potholes. Because there's no better traffic calming measure than some potholes.
I actually lived in a community in the UK where they refused to have their road paved because, it was like the Khyber Pass, but it kept people from, it kept people from parking on the road. It kept people from driving at any speed down the road because they literally let it turn into basically like a World War I trench.
And this is, I'm not so sure that the Park Streets residents aren't thinking the same thing. So we gotta be real careful with that.
Well, I think we're gonna look to you a lot to
Yeah.
take the
Absolutely.
temperature and, yeah.
Yeah. Another puppet apart.
I mean,
Yes, no, I would absolutely love to be part of that. Yeah.
great. And then the follow-up conversation with Gordon was like, this really does need to be a grassroots efforts from your residents. We really need,
Yep.
if you're advocating for this, that we need you to kind of like, talk to people. And he was like, oh, it's like 50-50. I'm like, well, that's pretty typical for city of Saugatuck. So we need your help, basically. So if the residents want it, then they really need to get involved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, next, please. All right, so Village Square Playground and Landscape, we need help with this one. So Scott Herbert, he's gonna help me out with this. We have some pictures here. I use this playground with my daughter Vivian. We love it. She's only fallen off that little drawbridge twice.
That's a fun one. It's a fun project.
So, when it kind of just generally meets the eye, it seems okay, right? Even my sister the other day was like, the park's fine. Why would you guys redo that? However,
Yeah.
Scott.
I would love to talk to your sister. Better yet, I would love to meet anyone on site to go through some of this stuff. But there's a couple things where you may look at some of these pictures, you're like, well, what's wrong with that? But for example, almost all the wooden posts are either decayed to this point, or they're completely detached from, they're not even posts in the ground. So that's the point of this picture right here. The Public Works, we went out and, just put some braces around each of these
Yeah.
posts. But a lot of them aren't even connected to the ground. Like, I think yesterday, I grabbed a hold of this right here and shook that whole structure right there.
Mhm.
And then another thing too, it's like, well, the coating on this picture here has been worn off, so there's some pretty sharp metal
Mhm.
right here. And also the post, there's a post here and then one that would be up that way. And there's about a 6-inch plus elevation difference between each of those brackets, which tells me that that's how much decay there's been. And so that whole bridge is kind of going downhill towards the east. And what that does, the unevenness of it, that causes these to be pinch points. And so someone could really it needs to be replaced. So, and I could go on and on, there's the swings, the chain links, they've been, this thing's probably, I don't know, maybe 25 years old,
My
maybe more.
kids are 22 and they played on that. when they
Yeah.
were
And so like a lot of
babies.
the links are completely worn. They're very thin.
Yeah.
So it's long overdue. I had, I like with the swing set, I work with a company called St. Clair Recreation, a guy named Jeremy. I hope you get to meet him soon. He's a great guy. He really wants to get involved with this project and help do some design work for it. But, and that would maybe create using the same company might create some consistency throughout the city, using some of the same equipment. But initially I met him on site and he's like, wow, wooden posts, you don't see that anymore. And on playgrounds. And so he's like, that dates it right there for me.
Is there a price on replacing everything?
Yeah, we have, I got pricing anywhere from like 80,000 to 120,000, but also too, I'm always so jealous that Douglas gets the garden club. They do such a great job over in Douglas. And so I'm always jealous of that kind of dedication. The garden clubs does a lot of stuff for us too. But also they have this group. I talked to the assistant city manager, Jenny, and Rich over in Douglas, and they had this army of, they call it the group of moms, that they went out and they sought out funds and they got a ton of donations. And so I put a bug in the group of the moms ear a little bit that, hey, we want this too. So hopefully we can get some assistance with that funding. But the project will really just be kind of how much do you want to spend? There's the lower, more budget friendly options all the way up.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I think, go ahead, Glenna, please.
Are we worried about these safety concerns enough to have somebody inspect it and say if it should be open or not?
Yeah. So I think to be really honest with you, I think if we had it inspected, it would be red flagged all over the place. And so it really is time. And I think doing it now where I've already done quite a bit of prep work for this, but doing it now and maybe getting it done before next summer would just be so perfect.
I'm very supportive. And go ahead, Kelly.
So I'm wondering if it needs to be done that quickly, if we take this opportunity to reimagine that whole, floor square. And if we want to look at moving the playground to the other side, closer to the bathrooms. Because I will say, when I had my kids at this playground crossing there in heavy traffic and kids running out to the traffic, it's really scary. We've had a couple near misses. So, I love the park. I love where it is, but I also think in terms of if we're going to spend this kind of money and we need to reimagine, look at the spaces as a whole as well. Do we want to look at that now?
Yeah, that's a good point. And the design aspect of it, would love this group to dive in and work with Fleece and Vanderbrink or playground equipment personnel, whatever it takes at this point.
I think looking at it holistically is a very good idea. I mean, it's worth exploring. There may be something that suddenly becomes like a stop, and then we need to once again work on things that like we've done over the past year with the bullard in the middle that tries to slow people down, and maybe we get more stops. There's a number of things if we can't go that route. But for this committee, I really think the safety deficiencies are there. Once again, though, I think there's a great amount of sensitivity and sentimentality, which is perfectly fine in this community for changes. And suddenly, if there's a bright the colors are off or different, park there, there will be people that will have issues with that.
Yeah.
There will be allegations that it's changing the character
Yeah.
or the aesthetics of the town. So that's one that's gonna really, I think, this group, not only the practical aspects, the safety aspects, how kids recreate these days, but also what fits, and is acceptable to everyone. Because some people, if it looks like a McDonald's play area, people will go ballistic. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's a big part of it too, Mr. Chair, is finding that balance, because, it makes perfect sense to look at something like the Village Square Park or Mount Baldhead Park holistically at the big picture. But the downside of that is that it bogs that project down significantly on time scale.
Right.
So it's kind of, there's a pro and con to each.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're doing this now, but this would be a project I would be interested in working on a subcommittee on. So I spent my life getting kids physically active, so it's kind of right up my alley.
Yeah, I was just gonna,
That's your Scott, you have a volunteer. You're a work group leader.
this is great.
Yeah.
And Scott, Mr. Chair's points were wonderful. Yeah, if you change the colors and the color scheme and the aesthetic and layout, that could cause other issues, but I think this is an opportunity to look at the four squares holistically. If anyone tries to get rid of that basketball court, they will be hearing from me and Scott Herbert directly. But there have been thoughts about, taking that out, putting pickleball courts. So, this is what this committee's for, and wrapping on those types of ideas. And then also, I'd love to see this. ADA accessibility is that's standard. But we can overdo that in a good way. And then also like adult exercise space as well, not just, if grandparents are out there taking their grandchildren, something for them to do, but you would know far more about that than I would. So lots of opportunities here. I hope we do make this a priority, and that's why we brought this to you.
I think this committee would be more than willing to advance something to the council quickly. I think, although I'm very sympathetic to, and I agree with Kelly's point of a holistic solution, particularly with the issue with the bathroom. But also this feels like a piece of low hanging fruit, if you will, in terms of we could actually put a really nice
Yeah.
playground in
In
that's
short
highly
amount of
visible,
time.
highly
Yeah.
visible in the center of town, when it's,
Mhm.
when it is sorely needed to be repaired. So.
Yeah. So like first steps, would that kind of go through engineering to get like a park plan for that? Or would that be more of like some renderings from a playground company? Or, how can I get this going is what I'm asking.
I'll take care of that with Scott Herbert.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next
But
steps.
you've got the feedback though from the committee in terms of, try to look at the four square, the intersection is a problem.
We could do the
Go ahead.
whole intersection for the four square, not just the one going to the bathroom, but the whole thing. So that's something just to look at as a whole, just that movement of traffic and people. But
And the use,
To ex-
some of it's way overutilized, some of it's way under.
right, exactly.
Talking about the basketball courts.
I have kids that go to the basketball court, so I'm not.
All right,
And then we'll bring in the pickleball brigade too, so think about that. So,
all right.
That's used a ton now.
I know, it's massive.
That's when the net is-
Okay, next slide, please. Airport property. All right, so city's been talking about ideas for the airport property. If you do not know where the airport, does everyone know where the airport property is?
I don't know where it's at.
Ish. I have not been
I
there.
have no idea.
So we're driving down Old Allegan. And we go past some streets. There's a big oak tree. You turn left.
It's 63rd, so Tails and Trails Dog Park out in the township. It's
Okay,
off
yeah.
63rd Street. I think that's 134th Avenue on 134th and 63rd. The airport property is almost the entire east side of 63rd Street, all the way up from Fairview Farms, where it opens up.
Oh, sure,
Um,
okay.
Highway going this way,
Uh-huh.
Tails and Trails, kind of right about in here somewhere, right?
Yep, exactly. It's
over
here.
Tails and Trails, but the highway's here, so an island of Saugatuck.
The ravines threw me off, like the juxtaposition of that. That's where I can't quite get it.
That's just how vast of an area it is. It's that much property. So it's
So is
about
it
what,
240?
170-ish
Oh.
acres?
It's 240, but
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll say 170.
This will definitely be a committee field trip at some point. It will blow your mind what's there. I
I
mean,
think
lot of
that's
it-
the most beautiful part of Saugatuck, right back there.
Yeah,
It's
ravine.
gorgeous,
At Silver Creek,
yeah.
goes into Silver Lake.
That's
Yep,
wonderful.
a lot of it's usable, a lot of it's marshy clay, but a lot of it is nice sand, good for trailblazing, so.
So can I jump in a little bit? The potential of this property, and obviously it's a decision for the council, but you know, there's a room for a lot of interesting things there. A number of us have talked about walking and hiking trails. We've also talked about working with the school for a cross-country course, which they don't have their own home field, which would be wonderful. Kelly's done a lot of work with community rec, and we don't have fields for community rec or dedicated space for community rec.
We're out of
Um,
space. That's what it is too.
What's
We're out of space.
out of space for community rec fields. You know, I would really love to see, personally, to see Saugatuck get into the renewable energy space. There could be areas within,
Composting.
well,
All
not only
the
composting, but also
everything.
there could be less desirable land for recreation that could be used for solar, for community solar. I mean, back where I used to live in the UK, you know, the community used to have garden plots,
Yep.
allow people to have their own, you know, leased garden plots. At 270 acres, I mean, once again, we're getting into the really big stuff, but you know, Saugatuck does not have affordable housing, you know, quality, small scale homes and affordable housing. That's a huge thing. That's a huge thing, but this is almost like a blank slate. It's almost like a blank sheet of 270 acre wide paper. I mean, it's massive and it's just, I see a lot of potential. And there's already little pieces coming into play. You know, we had, was it ComEd come to us?
Consumers?
Consumers came in wanting to put in a substation because there's a lot of problems with power outages in the township. Getting in a substation suddenly becomes sort of the gateway then to do things like, you know, facilities or that community solar array. So there's a lot of interesting things. It's a big blank sheet of paper, but I think ton of opportunity, but it's gonna take a really broad look at what it could be for the community. Go ahead, Glenn.
And if you want to look at trails connectivity, when you cross the road and then you're by Heaveners, that can go into trails that are back there by the dog park.
Mhm.
And so that would be a nice connected trail from that area across the road and then you're over in this part.
That's great.
Yeah, I think so isn't there there's two other parcels that are owned by the township that are adjacent or abut to this property as well. And I know they were interested in talking with Saugatuck Community Rec. The director there has talked to the township and they are also interested in having a collaborative meeting and saying, how can we use all these parcels for certain things together?
We also have
For the
about
best
10 acres on top of this. It goes,
Oh, is it that?
it's this way. So it used to be the Saugatuck Douglas Police Department. They had a shooting range over here for practice. And so we do have about 10 more acres. That's like about approximately like this. And
City
then
owned.
across, as you go down 134th towards Hills and Trails Dog Park, at the end, right next to the highway, there's the huge tower back there.
Yeah.
To the south of that, that used to be an old landfill. And if you,
Oh, wow.
if you walk back there, you'll actually still see the PVC vent pipes for that are releasing the, whatever it is, methane gas or whatever is being released from the decomposition of all that junk. So,
But
but-
yeah, it's interesting connectivity though, that could connect to some existing trails, because I think
Mhm.
the township just did a trail in that old dump area, just kind of to the north of Tails and Trail. So there's opportunity for collaboration, I guess is the big story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we also have one more kind of smaller issue, I guess, with it, but a lot of the surrounding properties, they have tree stands out there and they're deer hunting and they're trespassing on the property anyway. I gave the DNR a key to our gate and just told them patrol it whenever you want. Just to get people out of there, because if someone falls and breaks their leg on a tree stand, it could potentially be a liability for the city as well. So people are already using it. You know, it's just,
Of course, yeah.
you know, I personally know of maybe about 10 different tree stands out there. so once in a while, like November 15th or whatever, I'll throw on an orange vest and go walk out there and see if anyone's hunting out there, but or shooting me. But I haven't found anyone. A lot of them look old, like the trees grown into them, and they look kind of abandoned, but it is an issue. So people are already using it, is my point.
Okay, lots of opportunity there.
I think just, Kelly, you kind of expressed an interest in sort of
Yes.
taking a deeper dive in this one, haven't you?
love
Yeah. okay. And Glenn up for the trails as well, so yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
You got a couple of volunteers.
I'm hearing lots of ideas about development, and what I see all over town is development, and it kind of concerns me that everything is going to be developed, and then we're gonna lose, to me, the appeal of the area is that we have a lot of, nature. So just, I guess I'd be interested in it from that standpoint of let's not overdevelop it.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, when I mentioned just the fact that Saugatuck doesn't have like places like people that like, want to live here but can't afford to, but are the people that work in the bars, restaurants, work for the city, work in the schools, I would love for us to create an opportunity to have us, something, but obviously not 270 acres, because I think,
Well, just by looking at it, you could see where that could even go close to the roads and stuff, where it doesn't wouldn't impede upon all the forests and stuff, because I'm 100% in agreement with you, 100%.
Absolutely. I mean, we're thinking about more trails being.
Trails,
where
right,
it's
and if we need soccer
naturally
fields or
used.
whatever, is that kind of what you're getting at with
Yeah,
the?
yeah,
I
we're
mean,
thinking about a multiplex.
I got kids and
Yeah.
grandkids playing soccer, so I support
yeah,
that
I
too.
think-
you know?
It's green space.
Right.
yeah, I think a little piece, maybe something to discuss, and I'm not married to the idea, but because I'm with you 100%, Nancy, but I do think, if we could, once again, capture a renewable energy grant, and there's some area where we don't need, where we could put a solar array in, excites me. Kelly and I were talking the other day, you recently went up to Pigeon Creek Park,
Yes.
where there's a cross-country ski loop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's beautiful little lodge. So
Just-
they have rentals there. So then, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there's so many people from the Detroit and Chicago areas that are looking for things to do in the winter. So can we use this as a way to bring in more things that drive the economy in the winter, but also with the bend that we want it for locals, that we want
Yeah.
access to things as well.
And
That's a good idea.
little funny tidbit, at this place at one point was the land used by a snowmobile club, apparently. There was a snowmobile club operating there, so there are some old snowmobile.
And
trails.
in designs like this, there's no reason we can't integrate solar, working within trails, and do more like informational signs, saying this is what's happening here. We can marry all these ideas in a beautiful, beautiful way,
And,
ODC does a great job.
Yeah.
of
They
it.
do a great job.
and Scott currently uses it for a lot of the yard waste and debris.
Well, that's what I'm
and
saying, like, if we
composting,
would
yeah.
develop like a composting system where we make our own soil. I mean, we've got kind of cool things that could happen.
So yeah,
there,
it's, that's kind of why I'm saying multi.
Yeah, multiple use
I think
project,
there's
yeah.
a lot of opportunity, because, we are like this tight little developed out island along the lake shore. But now we've got this other thing that we haven't really leveraged in decades that could suddenly, be the sort of engine room that you don't really see, but still an amenity for people. And
Yeah.
And I'm happy to share my update too. So I came before council, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago now with
Yep, it's cool.
Saugatuck Rec, and how we've really outgrown what the offerings are. And it's a good thing. It's because the community is using them, and the programming has grown so much. And, this is only 2 miles from the high school, and there's a lot of issues with utilization of the ball field there. So once the Blue Star Trail goes in and these kids can actually bike and get there themselves in a very safe manner, I mean, there's a lot of different uses for it. So that could be very cool too, as far as the use for the community.
Well, and just to build on what you said, Scott, I mean, I'm totally supportive of like a vision of us becoming super like the sustainable community, and, and yet, keeping all the natural aspects and getting rid of the invasives. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it benefits everyone, from the people that are in the tourist business, to
Definitely.
suddenly, I mean, I think because people do select vacations based on, is my vacation going to be sustainable? Is it going to be, can I be green? when
More
I'm-
so now than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a project like this, I think that instead of having a committee, I think we all need to be part of this. I
This is
think
big, yeah.
This is
This is
big.
big.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is a
whereas
big one.
opposed to the other ones, we can go where we feel that our strengths are, this is big.
It also lends itself, I think, to a staged approach. I think we can
Absolutely.
identify some quick hits.
Yep.
I think, working with the school, we could probably come up with a cross-country course
I
pretty,
bet you
pretty darn
this,
quick.
yes, my kids were runners and we always had to go somewhere else. I mean, that would be really cool to have something like that here. Really cool.
I think a field trip there sooner than later.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay, noted.
It's a great idea.
I think we'll do that once hunting season's over, right?
Oh, my God.
Scott, clear
Get your orange vest.
Please.
There's definitely a lot of potential, but one thing I'd like you to keep in mind too is that, when you introduce human beings to nature, there is a maintenance element to it. So, and my question has always kind of been, well, what, like the public works staff, it's even emptying trash out there. I guess I would seek some clarity on how that would work. Is it right that city taxpayers pay for a level of maintenance on a township property? I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm certainly curious about it. But there's definitely going to be an element of maintenance that cannot be overlooked. Otherwise, it's going to get destroyed.
That's a good point.
Good point, Scott. Certainly part of the discussion.
I think, I hope this is okay with you all. I mean, I think I kind of expected this was going to be a really big juicy meeting because of just all this exciting stuff to talk about, but I do want to be respectful to all your time and also staff. So should we?
Yeah, let's wrap this up. Let's just have next slide is a real quick conversation about grant opportunities. John, I think Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, John
Please.
Moxie's
Please.
familiar with these grants, the Spark. We already talked, you don't have to talk about ARPA, John. Already touched on that. And as far as Allegan County being better resourced in many different ways, which is wonderful. But maybe the public spaces and community spaces grant as well, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, so starting with Sparks is a unique opportunity, kind of stemming from some of the COVID relief money, basically doing not just parks, but any public space, basically improvements, placemaking type things. The grant period just opened yesterday, so the details are still a little bit fuzzy. There's a webinar on Friday that we'll be attending to kind of get a little more meat on the bone, hopefully. But I think the city's job is to lots of different opportunities of where you could go. Obviously, we want to put a good application forward. So I think the city's job is to kind of think about what is our number one priority. Whether it's Mount Bald Head, Village Square, Airport, whatever it is, let's focus hard on that for this specific grant opportunity and then hit it, as hard as we can, basically. So that's the Spark grant. More to come soon
Sorry,
there.
John, real quick, just Mr. Chair, some sensitivity, like the playground, for example, like depending on the grant cycle, perhaps that's not because that's a priority for us and we want to get something done sooner rather than later. So we'll have to pay close attention to the grant cycle. And so that will dictate kind of where we would focus our energy with these funds.
And you feel like you're resourced well enough now to have staff kind of identify and say, yeah, let's really not miss the deadline on this one.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Do we know the next grant cycle on that one?
So there are actually 3 bites at the apple for Spark. The first one is this year, and then there will be 2 next year. So obviously, the more times we can hit it, if we don't hit the first one, obviously try again the next 2.
So this year would be due by the end of the year?
Yeah, they've told us that it's going to be open 6 to 8 weeks. So we're anticipating the application will be due yet this year.
And then the grant award would be,
Awards would probably be early next year, and usually this is kind of tied to the DNR has a annual grant cycle. So they're tying it loosely to that. So I would think we'll have the same 3 years to kind of use the money that a DNR project would.
that being said is what I'm experiencing, and John, I'm sure you're experiencing the same with your other clients, is that state staff is overwhelmed with processing these grants. And so even though they announce we're going to issue this grant by such and such a date, it's really not happening. So again, I guess my point is if we need to get this, for example, like we need to get this playground fixed. And so we wouldn't want to apply for a grant that we're like waiting to get these monies to get this job done. We should focus on something that's a little more long-term or different vision is what I'm saying.
I think from my perspective, and I'm open to suggestion, I would like us to, if we can, to have an application in for each of these rounds, these 3 rounds. Is there anything that we would consider to be kind of low hanging fruit that we could get with, for this first round? Anything that comes to mind? Go
I
ahead,
know
Glenn.
a lot of these grants want to, if it's from a municipality, to have had a public hearing on whatever it is that you're wanting to do. Is there anything we've already had public hearings on? Because otherwise it seems like a big thing to move forward by the end of the
Right,
year.
right. That always impacts the schedule, for sure. No, I don't believe there's anything specific that has had, kind of a broad public input yet. Other than, obviously we've been talking about Mount Belted for decades now. So that's probably had
Yeah.
input at a number of those steps.
But it's an exciting new opportunity. I'm not trying to be negative. I just want to be realistic and
No,
like
it's a good point.
moving the playground at
I agree
minimum
with the
forward.
playground.
Okay, yeah, no, if whatever staff thinks we can get across the line soonest, I mean, yeah, for sure. Because there's other opportunities coming down the road, so, but I'd hate to miss one.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. We'll have to pick the right one
Right,
or two.
All right, we'll leave that with the staff.
Yep, for sure. And the public spaces, community spaces, Ryan, that is part of Spark. That's some of the scope that's in Spark. I don't know if there's a different opportunity. I guess I'm not.
I thought it was separate, but I'll circle back to that. Okay, I mean, I guess the main point is that there's lots of dollars coming in. Exciting opportunity for infrastructure and public spaces. And so good timing with this committee and we're excited about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Thanks.
I have a question. So Fleisen Vandenbrink is the engineering firm, but you would also, that's who we would look toward to maybe take the lead in grant writing?
We have, yeah, we write a lot of grants. We have landscape architects on staff. So, yep, parks are kind of still in our wheelhouse. Yep.
Great.
And we can certainly collab if there's anyone that specializes in grant writing.
Once
Wink,
again,
wink.
another volunteer has been
Um,
drafted. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so, I've worked with partnerships before wherein volunteers will do more of the narrative, right? Some of what I call fluffy stuff, which is very important, right? In grant writing. And then the engineer firm will come in and just do like the very technical stuff. So it's a collaboration and we can work together on that.
Thank you. Does that wrap us up on,
That's it.
that's
the
it for number
presentation.
6, great. That takes us to number 7, reviewing next steps. I think we sort of did quite a bit of that in terms of people showing some interest in some of the work groups. So I think the homework would be, those of you that have found work groups that you're interested in, maybe start to come back to me or Ryan on how you'd like to staff up a work group. I don't think we're bound by city residency as a criteria. It certainly wasn't in the radar station project. So I can think of both, in all 3 of these cases, I can think of people you'd want to probably leverage or bring in and to create your little, go ahead, Nancy.
I just have a question about the Blue Star Trail.
Yeah.
So nobody raised their hand on that one. Obviously, I have some interest in it as being on the board. The Friends, would that be considered a conflict at all?
No.
Okay, and then, yeah, so would it be okay to have some of the people who are also on the Friends involved in this? Or would that, you know what I mean? I know we would want community members besides that, so just, and you don't have to answer that, I guess. or
Yeah,
think about that.
let me marinate on that one.
Okay, yeah, marinate on that one. You've been deep in the Blue Stars Trail, the tri-community cooperation on that. So I think, but I mean, unless anybody has any sort of questions on next steps, I think we kind of know where we're going. This was a pretty deep dive, a lot of stuff in our second meeting, but I think it was a good conversation. So I think we're there on that. That takes us to public comment. Once again, this could be on anything. And 3 minutes stop clock or shot clock, if you will. Anybody have anything they would like to share one last time? Oh, Barry, thank you for sitting through this. You have the floor.
Barry Johnson, City of Saugatuck. I kind of jumped in because I wondered if you found in the basement the plans for Michigan State for Mount Baldhead. I think Ryan said we do a lot of things and they get mothballed. I'm glad that you found them in the basement. So just wanted to give a little historical perspective and some of the original plans. They were going to remove the pavilion down at the bottom of Mount Baldhead because it's kind of rough, needed a new roof and everything, but there was a huge public outcry from the schools, parents, family reunions, scouting that do use that pavilion for outdoor activity, potlucks and things like that. So when you look at that pavilion, it's pretty rough, but the outcry was don't lose it. So pretty good plan. And then also the airport property, the schools came to us many years ago, and they had an incredible sports complex all drawn up, and it was really, they presented it. In the end, it was too expensive, but maybe you can find those plans because there were back-to-back softball fields. I believe there was a cross-country running route. It was quite extensive. A community sports facility would be the envy of the area. So those plans are buried somewhere in the basement too. So that's all I got. I just want to give a little historical perspective.
Thank you very much, Barry. Thanks for joining us. Anyone else, public comment? Oh, Scott's going to jump back in. All right, go for it.
Sorry, I will stop talking eventually. So, hey, Scott Herbert, Public Works Superintendent. I just wanted to give a quick update. Not really a huge deal, but it's kind of cool. I did meet earlier this week late last week, with a couple members of the Allegan County Conservation District, Kaylin Jablonski and Emily Rykow. And they were approved for a grant that basically their goal is to go around and find communities where they can donate and construct like fishing line monofilament disposal containers. And one of the requirements of the grant, and for us to get some ourselves, again, like Douglas has, is that basically we mount the container somewhere, and then Public Works will go through and filter out whatever trash was thrown in there and just take the fishing line, and then they provide envelopes and we mail it in to be recycled properly. So absolutely no reason why we shouldn't do that. We talked about maybe doing that at Mount Baldhead Park where people fish.
Absolutely.
Also Coughlin Park, Wicks Park, and then possibly Willow Park for those receptacles. And then another thing that they do too is they do like cleanup stations. So they'll have like little buckets, and then the litter claws. I don't know what they're called, but we thought maybe an appropriate place would be out at Oval Beach on the north end, because so many people they park on the north end of the beach, they walk to the pier, generously pick up litter. And if we can just give them some supplies to do that a little more efficiently, then I think it would only be to our
Great idea.
benefit. So we're planning on moving forward with that, unless there's any huge objection why we shouldn't, but I don't see any. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks. I think that wraps up public comment then, which takes us to member closing comments. We'll start with you, Nancy. Any?
Just one thing I wanted to inquire about, you talked about the invasive species, and that's an ongoing project. And so we didn't have that on our list as something to get involved in, but if you were looking for anyone to get involved in that, I would be so interested. And just one other thing that we talked about, just infrastructure and sidewalks and that kind of thing. So this is probably long-term, but there are areas up where I live up on the hill where we don't have, you can walk a whole street, city street, and there's no sidewalk, not on either side. And I find that to be, a problem. So I don't think it's an urgent problem, but just one that I thought, we should get out there, that it seems to me that any city block should have a sidewalk, at least on one side of the street.
Thanks. Okay. Go ahead.
Lots of exciting projects. I'm glad that there's something that we can get started on right away. I did want to clarify one thing. When we were talking about the airport property, did you say because it's township property or surrounded by township property?
In the township.
It's in the township. It's city owned, but it's surrounded by township. Yep.
It's
okay.
owned by us, yeah.
Thanks.
I just think there's a lot of momentum, a lot of energy, and I'm really excited about the forthcoming projects.
Great,
Yeah, I'm good.
thanks. And I just want to thank,
Enough.
okay, yeah, I just want to thank you all. I mean, I think, it was a 90-minute marathon, but I mean, I think really generated a lot of good talking, made a lot of good connections. So I really appreciate you all coming. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Motion by Kelly, second by Glenna. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
I don't know how city council is doing all this. This is a lot, you guys.
Well, we were. That's wrong.
It's a lot.
That's the issue. Things work.
Yeah.
Oh, just, I hear they just have a great city manager. That's all they do.
This is why. I would be. Yeah, plug your ears.
I'm leaving.
This is why.